Hello, baggers, and welcome back to Bluebaggers Edge. We are heading into round 15 and our second encounter with North Melbourne for season 2025. And interesting point in the season for the Carlton Football Club. It's a little bit of a rewind to almost the time of when we played North Melbourne, which was back in round 6, I think it was. And we'd come off the back of a match, an encounter with West Coast, and we didn't put in the best performance against the Eagles, and then came out against North Melbourne and absolutely pummeled them to the extent of 82 points. So a little bit of parallels here because, last week our encounter with the Eagles was not the most impressive. A lot of stuff we needed to work on, which, again, from round 5 all the way to round 14, we still had the same issues, if not more alarming. I think the way that we played, as I spoke about in the review of the Eagles game, I think tactically, structurally, the way that we have been playing, and that includes the clash with Essendon, just switching from all-out attack, looking really good, putting pressure on the scoreboard, to then switching to being, 100% defensive, kicking sideways, kicking backwards, holding a possession, slow play, and just doing the opposite to what was, looking, making us look impressive and, putting, as I said, pressure on the scoreboard. So I that wasn't present in the round 5 clash against West Coast. And yeah, it again is one of the things that's just cropped up in recent weeks, which is probably just as concerning and alarming as the usual issues that we've got with disposal efficiency, efficiency kicking inside forward 50, lack of, leading patterns and so on and so forth. And, just overall, I think our inability to kick a decent score, and that hasn't really happened since this game against North Melbourne back in round 6. So let's delve into it. Let's have a quick look. Of course, we will go through the team lineups ever so quickly, matchups, everything else, and just some stats as well. But this was a scoreline here when we last played them back in round 6. And, to kick 153 points is no mean feat, really. And it was out of the box, and we thought, yes, this is the point where we've finally, turned things around and rectified the issues that we saw in the first, 5 rounds of the season, but it just wasn't to be. We'll just have a quick look at this game. We might open it up in a separate tab, but just to compare kind of, expectations and what we delivered upon that specific game. So we'll go to the match center. 24-9, I think, is to have that sort of accuracy is, quite unique for the Carlton Football Club. Very rarely do we have that number of scoring shots, in itself, but to do so efficiently and effectively with 24 goals from, 33 scoring shots is pretty good. I'd struggle to really think of another game in recent memory where we were, that successful with conversion. But, in terms of the stats there, the big part that stuck out to me for this game was the fact that we had, 64 inside 50s, and we were able to have 33 scoring opportunities off the back of that. So, well over, not well over, but over 50%, which is pretty in terms of, efficiency, converting inside 50s to goals, I should be saying. But yeah, I remember walking away from that game and being impressed. And I was thinking, we're switched on. We've finally, captured the form that we know that the team has. And it kind of fell on a heap again. So I wonder off the back of, this time around, off the back of the game against West Coast in round 14, do the players take on board what the issues were? Do we come out and pummel North Melbourne yet again? I mean, even if we do, I'm kind of at the stage now where I'm like, week on week, it's almost a different team, and you don't know what Carlton side's going to come out and perform. So unless we see it on a consistent basis, you know, the microcosm side of things, like looking at games individually, you're like, yep, this is cool. Like the game that we had previously, round 6 against North Melbourne, I thought with that small sample size, 6 rounds into the season, maybe things were turning around, but 15 rounds in, and if we have that sort of win, I'm going to be like, well, it's cool, but we've got to continue. We've got to have the consistency. So, and that's what I'm looking for. Like, that's the one thing that the takeaway from that game was like the efficiency of delivery inside forward 50 and converting, that amount of inside 50 opportunities to scoring opportunities and even more so goals was pretty impressive, but it didn't last long. And it's kind of the story of 2025 really for the Carlton Football Club, just that lack of consistency from week to week. So let's have a look at the lineups, the changes here. There's only been the one change. Hudson O'Keefe goes out with that. It was a hamstring injury, and Mark Pitnet comes in, which I thought was a little bit of a surprise. I thought that perhaps Lewis Young might come back in. Maybe the youngster Lemmy might get a crack. He has been kicking some goals in the VFL, which is good to see, and we've been giving quite a number of youngsters a bit of a crack, which is a good positive, I think, takeaway from 2025 thus far. But it kind of reflects at the same time where we're at as a side developmentally, and I guess in terms of our depth. But yeah, I mean, Lewis Young, you can I reckon he could probably call himself a bit unlucky, because when he has been in the team, he has actually looked pretty good in terms of playing up forward. In defence, he's almost chalk and cheese. But with Pitnet, maybe they've learnt from last time, but a bit of a double team against Tristan Cherry, who is pretty dominant in the ruck, but even more so around the ground and at stoppages as well. When he's not having the hit outs, he is effective at ground level. He's applying countless tackles. He's the biggest tackler of any ruckman in the game. He's a contested play. He's incredible. So I can see merit in playing both Pitnet and TDK. Probably means that TDK spends a little bit more time forward, especially considering that, Harry has now been ruled out for, I think, up to 6 weeks. And I think we kind of need to find alternate avenues in terms of tall stocks for goals. Charlie, under a bit of an injury cloud still. I think he had calf awareness or something they want to call it, but he is apparently being declared fit to play. But in all honesty, it would not surprise me if he pulls up short and is a late out, because it's really ominous with Lewis Young there as the emergency. And I imagine he is there as that contingency plan if Charlie doesn't get up. But, it's almost as if, again, talking about parallels, like there's parallels to, this time last year, it might have been close to around 18 or thereabouts when we played Hawthorn, and we had that slew of injuries. Like Harry was out, Charlie was out. That prompted us to throw Kemp forward and, blow the likes of, Ashton Moyer, Cooper Lord, and, so on and so forth. So, it's just, I don't know. I'm kind of like, the motivation's kind of, been slapped out of me, in a sense, from what we've seen dished up most weeks by the team. So it's really hard to get up and about. I mean, even against North Melbourne, start of the year, you'd probably look at the fixture and be like, okay, well, this is a win. We'll pencil this in, which is great. But, at the start of the year, we had high hopes. We had, prospects of, expectations of playing finals and, pushing for a top 4 spot and, hopefully springboarding to, getting back to playing a prelim like we did in 2023. And it's fell well short of that, like well short of, top 4 aspirations, top 8 even at this stage. So whilst if we get a win, it will, I think, bring us level pegging. I think it will be, 7 wins, 7 losses. And we're still on the hunt for a final spot. Do we deserve it? I don't think so, really. And if you're not if you're not stringing together 4 quarters, if you're not stringing together, consistent halves of footy, what's it all for, really? What's the purpose behind it? Got a little bit sidetracked there, but for North Melbourne, should run through the ins and outs. They've only got the one as well, so Kellen Dawson goes out and Charlie Comben comes back in. Big in for them, I think, in terms of their defensive stocks. Albeit quite funny that they've got Caleb Daniel lining up at centre half back, which obviously won't happen, but good friend Logue will be in that spot. Any other game, any other, at full strength, different circumstances, we would definitely be stretching, which is what we did in the last encounter with North Melbourne in round 6. We stretched their defence with the likes of Harry and Charlie, and this time around we've got Charlie who's underdone, under an injury cloud. Does he even play? Do we have to rely upon TDK and Gov being our focal points up forward? Because, we've got Pitnet as well that can rotate and whatnot, but he's not, apart from his cameo that he played in the elimination final against Brisbane, where he actually, to his credit, played pretty well up forward. Kicked quite effectively. But, we should have their measure up forward. Defensively, I should say, up forward for them, up against our defence, we should have them covered, like Larky, Darling. Curtis always gets off the chain against us. I think he kicked maybe 2-3 goals last time against us. Again, we have to be on that. Zerha as well, he kind of has a little bit of a crack. I don't think he did much damage last time, but those two players in the forward line, apart from Larky, I think I'd be a little bit worried about. In the engine room, Dylan Stevens has had a little bit of a renaissance with his form, and at that point of his career where he kind of needs to step up. LDU is always an incredible player. Simpkin, I'm not too worried about, really. Sheasel, an incredible player. Wardlaw as well, just bash and crash at the contests. Really good player. But we should have their measure. We should. But nothing's a guarantee when it comes to Carlton. We know that. And heading into round 6, off the back of that West Coast game where we looked pretty ordinary on their home deck, I went into this game being like, if we play the same way that we did against the Eagles, North Melbourne will beat us. So it was good to see that the baggers were switched on and were able to get the win. But I'm kind of finding myself having that same pattern of thought this time around. Like, they need to switch on, they need to come out and do a number on North Melbourne. And play with, a style of football that is consistent from, start to finish, but also the issues that I spoke about, and it was a coaching side of things more so than anything, which has always been an issue, I think, across the season to date. But the way that we were coached against Essendon, against West Coast, when we came out and smashed in the first quarter, and then all of a sudden the players were instructed to play defensively, to defend a lead for 3 quarters, which is just utterly ridiculous. And it was an instruction because it was the way the players structured, the way that the players, kicked the ball back, switched the play and just flicked a switch where it was like run and gun, handball, to then possession footy, maintaining, as much of the ball as we can and, try not to make mistakes, which again, I think we kind of get into our own minds and being like, okay, well, we have to be efficient. And then we turn the ball over and lo and behold, we give up goals and allow the opposition to get back into the game. So yeah, it's a big worry. And, it comes down to the players' quality, yes. But if we are being coached in that style, if we are flirting with form by doing that, North Melbourne are a better side than West Coast, albeit, not by much if you're going to compare the pair. But, we don't want to expose ourselves again to, lapses and, styles of coaching, which is just ridiculous. And the way that we played last time against North Melbourne was incredible. It was from start to finish, just relentless pressure, you know, kicking goals, run and gun, carry through the middle, zigzagging, kicking wide, kicking back through the corridor, hitting up targets, leading targets at that. It was everything that I'd hoped and dreamed for a Carlton side. And it lasted for that one game and then disappeared. So, I don't know. The parallels, can we recapture that? Can we continue it? If we can recapture it, who knows? Who knows? Let's quickly go through some stats for both teams in terms of averages. Disposals, very, very even, 366.5 to us, 362.5 to North. Inside 50s, 56.2 to us, 47 to North Melbourne. Disposal efficiency, we're actually lower than North Melbourne, believe it or not. Well, it is believable. 69.8%, 73.4% to North. I think we're ranked 17th or 18th in terms of efficiency moving the ball. So no real surprise there. Efficiency inside 50, we are less than North Melbourne, 44.4% to 47.1%. Hitouts, North are actually averaging 5.2 more than us. Clearances, very even, but we actually concede 1.7 less than North Melbourne. Centre clearances, again, 0.9 less. Stoppage clearances, again, 0.8 less than them. Contested possessions, we have it in our favour there. Uncontested possessions, very even, but we concede a couple less than North Melbourne. Turnovers, we actually average 0.6 more than North Melbourne. Marks, we average about 15 more than them. Marks inside forward 50, 1.5 more than North. Contested marks, 3.1 more than them. And scoring very, very even, 11.6 to North Melbourne's 11.5. Behinds, we average more than them. We actually have 38 more behinds kicked compared to North Melbourne. So 11.3 on average to 8.4. Tackles, 66.1 to North Melbourne 60.6, which is good to see. Just, indicates pressure, which, we need to apply and continue applying in order to really force turnovers. Tackles inside 50, 12.8 to North Melbourne's 10.8. And I like to always look at the 1%, as 44.3 to North Melbourne's 40.2. So about 4 more on average compared to them. I just want to have a quick look at Wheelo ratings as well and have a look at the team stats side of things in terms of where North Melbourne concede for score origins. So opposition averages and score sources. So kick-ins, North Melbourne, they concede the 4th most. Meanwhile, we concede the 5th most via kick-ins. Stoppages, North Melbourne concede the 2nd most via stoppages. So this is definitely an avenue that we need to be dominant in. And for too often, we've fallen asleep, and we did against West Coast, really, in the from the second quarter onwards. So really, we need to get on top in that area. North Melbourne, they concede, again, the 5th most via turnover, and we concede about sort of middle of the road in the competition. So, yeah, it's just, you just hope that the engine room is switched on. You really do. Just want to see match stats. I just want to see if we kicked a majority of our scores via the engine room back in round 6 when we play them. So you'd hope so. You'd think so. Score sources, yes, there you go. Via stoppages, we kicked 12.5. And turnovers, again, 11.3. So these are areas that they've been exposed for and that we exposed them for to great effect back in round 6. So these, again, are areas that we need to continue on with dominance. and not allow them to rectify that as an area that, you know, they can improve in. So there you go. And a lot of our scores were via forward half. So I just want to see that as well. Did they concede a heap of their scores on average across the season in the forward half? There you go. Yeah, the third most scores conceded in the forward half. So we really exposed them in areas that they are deficient in, which is good to see, and probably speaks to why it looked so bloody good, that game against them back in round 6. But yeah, that's it, ladies and gents. We might leave things there. Let us know, as always, your thoughts down below. Keep this quick fire, of course, 20 minutes in and out. Not really much else to discuss. We've discussed most of the areas of, you know, the grievances and issues that we've had in recent times that cropped up against West Coast. And we'll obviously review things off the back of this game. Let us know your thoughts, expectations down below. Always keen to hear your thoughts as a fellow bagger. So thanks again, ladies and gents. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one. Go Baggers.